Hello people, we are Tottenham TV back here for a yet another Tottenham update. But before we get into that, brand new t-shirts have hit the store over the weekend, and already some of you have been supporting the channel in buying some of them already. The Van de Ven one, some of you absolutely adore right
iconic
now.
Image.
Yeah, it really is. It's probably the most iconic image of the final, and it wasn't even a goal or a trophy lift. So yeah, big up to everyone that's already purchased theirs. But yeah, brand new Thomas the Frank engine, James Madison tees, and all the classic ones as well there for you.
More incoming as well.
Yeah, we're going to be busy over the summer in getting these designed for you guys. But yeah, brand new shirts on the store right here, right now. And every single penny that is put into We Are Tottenham TV gets put straight back in. And as the wise man once said, but
it's WeAreTottenhamTV.shop.
Yeah, link is in the description below if you want to get your hands on one of them. But yeah, there's plenty of merchandise on the store right here, right now. But let's get into this Tottenham update. Going to start off talking about Ashley Phillips, as journalist Alan Nixon says that Thomas Frank is a big fan of Ashley Phillips and wants to keep him at Tottenham next season. Phillips spent last year on loan in the Championship at Stoke and was impressive. So well that several clubs do want to sign him, but Frank has other plans.
That's an interesting report, because we've been speaking about how well he's done at the Championship over the last few seasons, getting rave reviews from the likes of Stoke and Plymouth. And as a young centre-back, we were thinking, do we give him an opportunity? Does he need a Premier League loan? Does he need another higher-level Championship loan? We kind of came to the conclusion probably a Premier League loan would be best suited. But it depends. If in pre-season he blows away Frank, and Frank thinks, wow, this guy, I really need to start using him in the first team, he's good enough to play, then we could maybe save a bit of money on signing another centre-back. Obviously, a lot depends on the future of Cuti Romero, and there's obviously Ben Davies as well, whether he's here or not. All these things probably play a part in it, but it'd be really interesting if Ashley Phillips gets a run next season, because everyone's been talking about Vuskovic. I feel like Phillips has gone under the radar a bit in terms of how impressive he's been as well, and he's been doing it in England.
Yeah.
And they're similar ages as well. I think obviously Vuskovic is a couple of years younger, but Phillips has been doing very well. He's also very tall, or 6'4". He's very comfortable on the ball. There's been a lot of talk about him ever since we signed him. So maybe it is time for him to get his chance. I still think right now, when you talk about Phillips, I still think, does he need a Premier League loan? But sometimes you just need to get that opportunity, and maybe it could be under Frank.
Yeah, it's like something I've been advocating for in terms of, giving him Premier League experience. I've been saying that there is no need for him to go back down to the Championship. He's proved all he can prove already at the age of 19, 20, that he's definitely good enough to play at that level and probably a level above. I would love it if he came into the first team next season. And is there an opportunity there with Dragoshin on the back of an ACL as well? How many minutes, and can he get to the top of his game so early on in the season? So I'm thinking, is there an opportunity for him, at least in the early part of the season, to get significant minutes?
Yeah, obviously depending on how ready Dragoshin is, 100% there is an opportunity, depending on how well he does in pre-season. Obviously, he played in pre-season last time, didn't he? And did quite well, if I remember. Yeah. Didn't he score a goal, I think?
He looked decent.
And he looked quite good. So, obviously, look, we know Premier League is a different kettle of fish. So, doing well in the Championship doesn't necessarily mean you're ready for the Premier League. But doing it at that age does suggest real potential. And maybe given the opportunity to really show what he's capable of in the Premier League and during that pre-season, maybe he can surprise a few people. So I'm looking forward to what Frank thinks of him. I doubt they've made a decision now in terms of what he's ready for. But I'm very intrigued, because we've got a lot of talent in that centre back department. So hopefully we get to see more of Phillips.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a massive believer in Ashley Phillips and his abilities, and I think he's going to go far in the game. But this season is going to be interesting to see what they actually go and do with him. Another centre-back that's been linked with Spurs is Ko Itakura. Give Me Sports say that Tottenham have been made aware of Ko Itakura's potential availability at Borussia Mönchengladbach after staying in regular contact over a deal for the Japanese centre-back. Gladbach are expected to demand in the region of £12 million to allow him to depart. Yeah, and apparently Frankfurt have been looking at him as well.
Yeah, so 12 million is definitely a deal we'd be looking at. I guarantee you, if it's a player we're interested in. He's a player we've been talking about for a while, isn't he? Itakura, for a few seasons. For one reason or another, we've never really decided to go for it. Again, would you rather go for Itakura, a cheap deal like that, for depth at centre-back? I doubt we're going to sign him to be, as our main choice to replace like a Romero. Or do you give that role to a Phillips or a Vuskovic? That's the kind of decision the club have to make, especially as well if Davis is going to stick around. I think Itakura is the kind of signing you make if you don't believe Phillips is ready. It's like a short-term option as cover. So again, a lot of moving parts, but I think he's quite good playing out the back. He's quite a good ball carrier. He's done really well in the Bundesliga over the last few seasons. Good experience as well. I think he'd be a decent option. I don't think he'd blow anyone away, but I think he'd be a decent short-term option if we're waiting for the likes of Vuskovic and Phillips to develop.
Yeah, he's an interesting option because back in 2019, I think Man City actually bought him over from the J League. Never made an appearance for Man City and he's just been on consistent loans in the Bundesliga with several clubs, and he's done pretty well at all of them. A guy that knows how to play out the back, good with the ball at his feet, 28 years of age, going into the last year of his contract now. So there's some value to be had there with Itakura. But if you would have asked me if it's a choice between him coming in and you're giving him a 2-3 year contract or kind of trusting in Ashley Phillips, I'll probably trust in Ashley Phillips, even though this guy probably is the better short-term fix.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of decisions that go into that kind of decision. Is Phillips ready now? How much playing time does he need to develop to be ready? Is he better off going out on loan to get that game time, or is he better off staying and getting those minutes in the Premier League so he gets that experience now? Is there going to be enough time for him? All these different things. How long do you think Itakura is going to stay here for? Is he a long-term option? So there's a lot of this kind of factors that go into a decision like that. But for me, I think another like cheap centre back. I'm not saying we have in Dragusin and Danso. I'm not saying they're cheap, but they weren't the most expensive. I mean, Dragusin was 30, Danso was 20, 25. Yeah. In current modern day football kind of standards, they're fairly cheap deals. So to kind of go for another one when we have two centre backs there, especially if it's going to be to replace Romero, it doesn't make too much sense to me.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I feel like this isn't like a concrete link or anything like that. I feel like it's pretty much agent talk, just putting out there and seeing if it pipes up any interest. Next up, another centre-back that we're going to talk about, and that is Coney De Winter. Ben Jacobs says that Tottenham have added De Winter to their short list of centre-backs options if Cuti Romero should leave the club this summer. He'll be available for around 25 to 30 million euros. A whole host of clubs been linked with him this summer already: Everton, Inter Milan, Juventus. And this does seem like an option if Romero was to depart, like I mentioned, but I just don't think Romero's going this summer.
Yeah, that remains to be seen at the moment. You've got to say it's still uncertain whether he's going to be here or not, but whether Atletico pipe up with the money and all that kind of things, whether we can convince him to stay, those are all still moving parts. But in terms of replacing him with someone like De Winter, obviously he's not as experienced as Romero, hasn't really been playing at the Champions League level. As you was looking into him last season, he'd had a 3-month hamstring injury as well. So that's got to be a bit of a concern considering Van der Ven's problems that he had with hamstrings as well. Do you want you could potentially have two defenders who last season missed 4 months or 3 to 4 months with a hamstring injury. So obviously Ange not being
Romero
here.
gets his fair share of injuries as well.
Romero gets his fair share of injuries, but obviously he had last year was a thigh problem. The season before, everyone remembers it as he missed a lot. He only had one suspension. He actually didn't miss that much. It was last season really he had an injury. He had that toe injury, and then he had a thigh injury. He had a few different problems. Is this the guy again to replace Romero?
It seems as though like De Winter's hamstring problem last season was kind of like the first he's had of his career, proper one.
He still had one, and sometimes when you first have your hamstring injury, that can start to reoccur. Yeah. That's definitely an issue players seem to have. They're more likely to occur, especially if it's been a tear or something. So I don't know what it was, but all I read was a hamstring injury. If it was a tear, then there's a chance that could reoccur depending on obviously how we play, all these different things. But he's quite. I know he's quite aerially dominant. He's a good defender. I don't know how good he is on the ball in terms of his passing out the back and stuff. I know he plays for a Genoa side. I don't know if you played with Dragusin, played like a back three, not the most possession heavy team. But maybe they see like a potential in him for a good value, where we're thinking, actually, we could sign him for like 30 million and within a year he could be worth 50. Maybe that's what we're thinking. But again, I wouldn't want to replace Romero with him.
But he's also been quite versatile over the course of his career. Maybe not last season, but he has been known to play at right back as well. So he can fill maybe potentially both positions if he was to come here. And maybe that's what they're looking at as well. Next up, we're going to talk about Dennis Cirkin. We brought you a report yesterday regarding Spurs potentially looking at bringing Cirkin back to the club. Sebastian Vidal says that Tottenham want to bring back Cirkin, trained at the club and now a starter at Sunderland. The left back is on Spurs' radar despite missing the deadline to activate his buyback clause. An official bid is being prepared for Dennis Cirkin.
So there's a couple of reports now linking us to Cirkin, which is quite interesting, heating up. We know we have this issue with the club trading players. We know pretty much we're going to have to bring one in all honesty, if we're going to make the squad size work for us. And kind of having a backup fullback is probably the least of the bad options to bring one in, really, unless you're thinking of a Marcus Edwards, but you don't really want to bring a forward player. We'll need to really up the quality. We know we have good fullbacks in Spence, Udogie and Porro, and even Gray who can play there. So bringing a fourth choice fullback isn't the end of the world, albeit it's obviously inconvenient. But if you have someone like a Walker Peters or a Cirkin, especially Walker Peters, who's got obviously that Premier League experience, we know he can play at that level. Cirkin's obviously an interesting one because he was quite highly thought of when we let him go. A lot of people were saying he was going to make it to the first team. Never quite happened due to injuries and things. We let him go. He's gone to Sunderland and he's been a fixture in their team. They've risen from the Championship into the Premier League and he's been a mainstay in that first 11, especially last season. So the guy has been kicking on. He's still fairly young, 23, and maybe he's showing potential to be a Premier League player. But I guess the difference is, with Walker Peters, I think we know he can play at this level. And also in the Championship 2 years ago, he got into the team of the season. So the decision to be made there, do you go with Cirkin with potential that maybe he could actually be, surprise a few people, he could actually develop into a really good Premier League left back? Or is it kind of like Walker Peters where you know what you're getting and you just kind of, he can play right and left to a fairly decent standard, but he's not going to be here for too long probably. And, he's only going to be as good as what you have at the moment, whereas Cirkin could potentially get better. So then also you got the problem is if Cirkin comes at 23 and then it's not getting much game time, does that stagger his development from his point of view? But the chance of rejoining Tottenham playing Champions League might be too big to pass up for either of them. So I think that there is this interesting decision to be made. Again, I still think we'd go with Kyle Walker Peters just because the fact he can play on both sides helps, and he's Premier League experience as well, and he knows a lot of the players in the club. I just saw he was Solanke's best man at his wedding. That surprised me. Apparently, they're clearly very good friends, so that would help. I think the fact that that would help him reintegrate into the team if he needed that help. So I would probably still side with Walker Peters, but it's interesting if we decide on Cirkin what that would mean for him and what that would mean for what we think of his potential.
Yeah, it's also a question of where both these players' heads are in terms of at this stage of their career. Do they want to be playing regularly or not? But if it's from just the Spurs perspective, I think Dennis Cirkin will probably command a longer term contract probably than a Kyle Walker Peters because of his age. And if you can sign Kyle Walker Peters up to like a 3-year deal, I think in 2 years' time, a lot of our players will become club trained. So at that point, it'll be easier probably to get rid of a Kyle Walker Peters than it would a Dennis Cirkin, and that's probably what the view is from the club. We're only considering bringing in these players because of the club trade numbers. So I think solely from that basis, I think probably Kyle Walker Peters is probably the smarter option. Like you said, can cover right or left back, has had quite a fair bit of Premier League experience over the past couple of years as well. So yeah, I mean, it's one for the scouting department as well, because if they really believe that Dennis Cirkin can flourish and keep getting better and better as the years progress and actually can make an impact in a Spurs shirt later on down the line, then yeah, fine, bring in Cirkin. But if not, then probably just bring in that short-term option of Kyle Walker Peters, look to move him on in 2-3 years' time. And then in that time, you'll have all the club train numbers, kind of sorted at Tottenham.
Yeah, and also we didn't touch on, obviously Cirkin's got 1 year left, but you still have to pay a fee for him. Obviously, Walker Peters wouldn't have any fee. It'll be a modest fee, but still, it'll be some sort of fee. And Walker Peters obviously comes in at free, so probably an easier deal to do. And then, as you say, it depends. If they really see Cirkin as someone that could maybe one day challenge Udogie, then maybe we might be worth bringing him in. But if it's like, if they're not certain about that and they're just looking for a short-term thing, yeah, Walker Peters makes more sense.
We did do a poll yesterday, 2,500 votes, 46.9% say Cirkin, 53.1% Kyle Walker Peters. So very, very split within the fan base.
Yeah.
So let us know your opinions on that in the comment section.
It's a debate for the ages, Cirkin or Walker Peters. That's what we're debating in 2025.
Not quite as a heavy debate as was he indoors or outdoors with Thomas Frank, but it's definitely up there.
That one has really grabbed the internet by storm.
Let's talk about Bryan Mbeumo now, as Sam Tabitao, who is a Brentford journalist, has just recently joined Standard as well, and he did his first article today regarding Bryan Mbeumo in Manchester United and Tottenham situation. And he says that United are reportedly now readying a second bid for Bryan Mbeumo, but their pursuit of Mbeumo could be complicated by the fact that their former Brentford boss, Thomas Frank, has joined Tottenham. Brentford want to hold out for a fee closer to the 62.5 million United paid for Matthias Cunha earlier in the summer. Most importantly, however, they want strong payment terms, which could mean maximising the fee received up front. That could cause problems for United, who had wanted to pay for Cunha in 5 instalments, but eventually meeting Wolves' terms with 3 instalments over 2 seasons. United's initial reluctance suggests that they're not in a strong position to meet Brentford's terms, and that could open the door to Tottenham for an Bryan Mbeumo move. United remain confident of wrapping up the deal for Mbeumo and are still the front runners for his signature. Brentford, though, are prepared to wait for favourable terms before sanctioning a sale, and Tottenham are ready to come in should their rivals struggle to agree a price. I mean, I would push back on that a little bit, because they're talking about favourable terms and Tottenham stumping United on that one. I mean, in terms of a 62.5 million fee and the majority of that paid up front, Tottenham ain't doing that.
No, we're not going to be paying up front, but will we give better terms than Man United? You never know. I think there's a good chance right now, if we've got more cash available than Man United, then we could be able to offer more favourable terms potentially if we're in a better financial position. Doesn't mean it's going to be majority up front, but will we give more less instalments? Will we give more upfront than Man United will potentially? Those are all different, obviously, caveats to it. I mean, when we're talking about instalments and all these different things, and I know it makes big differences to clubs, but I just find it hard to believe Man United are going to pull out the deal because they've agreed to pay a fee but not the right instalment metric. And if Tottenham agrees something, I think United will find it hard not to match it. I think at that point they'll probably get desperate. That's kind of what I've seen from them, unless they're just unable to. And if that's the case, then Mbeumo might have to join Tottenham. But I still think it's unlikely. But look, again, as I've said, our name's still there. We're clearly trying our hardest to make it happen and to try and convince Mbeumo, we want you more. We're more serious about bringing you here than Man United. How much of a hold him being a Man United fan holds over him, only he really knows. But as long as this deal is dragging on, I mean, the more likelihood that Tottenham becomes a stronger option, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it's just like, no updates have ever progressed on this for like the last week or two. It's been like at the same situation, like Man United, still front of the race, still favourites to get him, but nothing is moving on this at all.
But we've seen United pull out of deals if they weren't right, like we saw with the Tell deal. Tell wanted to go there, and they agreed, I think, personal terms or whatever, and it seemed to be set for them, and they pulled out because they didn't want to pay the loan fee. And I can't remember exactly. I think it was just a loan fee and some other things, but they didn't agree the deal. Then Tell obviously ended up joining Tottenham, and then he obviously joined us permanently after the loan. So things can change very quickly.
And now he's fully COYS.
Balling out, played brilliantly for France yesterday in the under-21s, scored a great goal. So things can change very quickly when it comes to, in modern day football with these financial situations. So no guarantees he joins United, albeit they might be the front runners because Mbeumo leaning towards joining them. No guarantees.
Yeah, Jermaine Defoe said yesterday about his goal. It was from the Thierry Henry playbook.
The Human Son playbook, please, please, Jermaine, get it right. But yeah, tell you what, it was a great finish, and that's what we want to see more from Tell. Those kind of finishes, because he's got that in his locker to do that quite regularly, I think, and we just haven't been able to get that out of him just as of yet.
Last story that we're going to talk about is by Fijajes Sport, completely reliable journalist. says that Tottenham are among the host of Premier League clubs showing an interest in a summer move for Sevilla midfielder Lucien Agume. Tottenham view Agume as a chance to add young and versatile player to their midfield, and I believe they offer the Frenchman an ideal environment for development. There is a feeling Sevilla would consider offers in the region of 20 million euros for Agume this summer, with Arsenal currently believed to be leading the chase for Agume, because Arsenal, apparently Thomas Partey is going to be leaving on a free this summer, and there's another option there. They've got rid of Jorginho as well, who's currently playing at the Club World Cup. They've bought in Zubimendi, so there's another option. They're looking for another midfielder. And this guy, I mean, we were looking, he was part of our video that we did for CDM targets this summer, and the data behind him is just phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, and he looks like a really exciting prospect. You know, I mean, at 23, he's more than a prospect, but obviously the talk at the moment with Tottenham is we want to experience central midfielder to come in, but sometimes you get a talent like him who maybe it's too good to turn down. Again, they only want 20 million for him, which is a really modest fee for, I think, someone who's the ability he's shown. He's had a great season at Sevilla. I know Sevilla didn't have a great season themselves, but he was quite good. And he's playing, I think he's playing at the moment in the under-21s, having a really great time of it. And he's a central midfielder who kind of fits exactly what we need. Someone who's really good with the ball at his feet. His passing ability is really strong, really great defensive numbers, gets involved in lots of duels as well. He's very young. So as much as he's not so experienced when it comes to playing at the Champions League kind of level, I think he's a talent who could really fit in at that level. And I think he's a really, really interesting player. And if it's true that he's willing to go, I mean, I'm sure if all three of these teams are in for him, then they'll have a bidding war and it won't be 20 million. But 20 million would be an insane fee, I think, for that.
Yeah, it looks as though we're trying to put together the French under-21 squad together. Gomi in midfield. We've got on the left-hand side, Tel. On the right-hand side, Odegaard. Up front, Callum Wendo. We're going to turn into France under-21s at this point.
It's not a bad thing to do.
Quite unbelievable, though, if any of these reports are true. It is from Pajakas, so obviously take it with a massive pinch of salt. But that is your Tottenham update for today. Remember to check out the We Are Tottenham TV store as well if you're interested in any merchandise. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.